Greetings, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Cambridge University Press sponsored webinar, Building Classroom Communities. This is the third of the 3 webinars for September to get you off to a good start during this challenging school year. Jenny Blasi and I, Martha Altieri, are delighted to have Stephanie Gigante, Sammy Smith, and Stephanie Spalding back with us again as guest presenters. All 3 have done several webinars for us and have been presenters at our summer workshops. Stephanie Gigante teaches at Ridgewood High School in New Jersey and is a technology innovation specialist in her district, as well as a certified Google and Pear Deck trainer. Sammy teaches at the Master's School in Dobbs Ferry, New York, and in addition to teaching Latin, she also teaches English, philosophy, and Greek. And Stephanie Spalding teaches at Hamden Day Country Day School in Hamden, Connecticut. She's also a writer and a podcaster. All 3 of these ladies are experienced CLC users, and they have some excellent suggestions and ideas for you this evening. Your microphones are muted, and we ask that if you have any questions or comments to please use the chat box. You'll see on your screen that you do have 2 options, chat, question, and answer, but we really prefer that you use the chat box. It's just easier for us to monitor. We are recording this session, and the link will be posted on cambridgelatin.org in a few days. And if you need a professional development certificate for this evening's webinar, please contact us at clctraining.org and we'll get a certificate out to you quickly. And now to Stephanie, and Sammy.
Actually, can I just interrupt to say, please, unless you're sending it just to the host, and send your chat messages to everyone, unless it's just something you want me to read.
Okay, thanks for the introduction. We're going to start with a little overview and just acknowledge the importance of community and connection in our classroom. Ultimately, I think we all want to work towards a joyful learning environment. And a big part of that, I think, maybe the biggest part, is community and connection. We have various connections in the classroom between teacher and student, and between the students in the class. And I think we all know about the class bond. That is like the ultimate success when you have a class that just gels and it's fun and people are really learning together. And we know from the philosophy of the Cambridge Latin course that when we feel connected to what we're learning, we learn better. So connections are supremely important. In fact, I would wager to say that connection should come before content in many cases. So we have to build a connection, we have to build the community, and we have to put that first. And with the current challenges we're all facing, it is never more challenging to build community, but never more important, I think, too. So our goal today is to present for all of you some examples of how we've done that in our classroom, what's worked for us, and also some takeaways that you can try right away. So I hope that you'll all go home with something that you can try tomorrow morning if you want to. We do want to acknowledge that everybody's situation is different, that we are all in different, whether it's full-time in person, hybrid, full-time remote. We all have different technology that is available to us and to our students. So there is no one solution. And we have to kind of come to these ideas with an open mind and a willingness to get an idea and adapt it to our particular situation. There's no one Band-Aid. I wish I could tell you exactly what to do, but we'll give you some ideas as a starting place, and then you can adapt them. So we're going to we've decided to structure our talk by talking about ideas for when you're starting a class, some ideas you could try during class instruction, and also some ideas to close your classes out, whether you're in person or meeting virtually. And then we'll have some ways to connect beyond the classroom, which will be useful to those who are deep in asynchronous learning. So that's our goal, and we come to you with open hearts and hoping that you can find something useful and build that community in your classroom.
I also just want to jump into that, if you have other suggestions that you have used or that that dovetail nicely from the things that we're addressing tonight, we'd love to hear about what you're doing in your classrooms too, because we Latin teachers, we're really good at sharing, and I'd love to hear other people's approaches and just to see what other people are doing too, because I think that we can all enrich each other no matter what we do.
I completely agree. This is Sammy Smith, and I wanted to emphasize that so much of what we're doing, as Stephanie Spalding said originally, is we're teaching kids. We need to find ways to celebrate student voice, to make sure our students feel seen and heard, not only by us, but also by their peers. And I think that's particularly challenging if we're in these kind of hybrid or remote situations, things that I think in so many ways we found easier in face-to-face, but even in face-to-face now we're all spread out and maybe we don't have all of our classes, or it's a kind of strange pod of kids who are coming through that we see face-to-face and not our usual classes. So we're going to be talking about how to celebrate those things, how to use opportunities for pair and group learning. During the webinar on breakout rooms, if you had a chance to attend, or if you didn't and you click on it later, I think it's particularly helpful to make use of any kind of breakout room so that students can pair off together and chat with one another so that they have the opportunity to socialize, which is exactly what school is about. That they find beauty in what they're doing, that they laugh, that even in the midst of this crazy time, that they love learning, they love Latin. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of things that I do to start off my class. I have these posters like how's the weather, and I ask my students to think about weather metaphorically. So it could be literal, like the weather today is rainy, and we can talk about that, and it's a great way to get Latin vocabulary in. But it also is a way to talk about, like, I really feel like I am in an overcast day. The sun is not shining for me. Or maybe everything is caelum serenum for me. And so they get that opportunity to learn vocab, to chat with one another. You have a very quick read on them. My students have a copy of this so they can point to it, they can type it up in the chat, they can write about it, they can shout it out. So there are a variety of ways that you can use this. And in the same way, my students also like telling me adjectives about them, like I'm naughty today, I'm in love, and it could be in love with an author, it could be all sorts of really fun things. So I think it's wonderful to get the classroom started with student voice to lower the stress level for all of us and to get to know our kids. A couple of other things that I do are pairings of quotes with stages. And so I've just listed a few. These are all from Rose Williams' Latin Quips at Your Fingertips. So I'll go through quotes and I'll find out something that I think is particularly essential for a particular stage. When stage 28 does inscriptions, I might start off with this quote and I'll put students in groups, whether that be virtual or whether that be face-to-face or whatever. And I have them chat about what the quote means, how it might affect them in some way, what they're thinking about. That which I am, you will be, what they think the chapter is going to be about, the upcoming stage. Stage 32 with the Falernian wine, anything in stage 34 with Paris and Domitia, and how we think about love and the kinds of silly behaviors that we make when we're in love, very teenage kinds of mindsets. And in stage 40, who who stays friends with Salvius? Should anyone stay friends with Salvius, and why? And those bring up a host of discussions that are both personal and the way that students can make connections specifically to the text.
So this is Stephanie Spalding again, and this is an activity I first learned in a leadership class. It's pretty well known. It's called A Rose and a Thorn. I call it Rosa et Spina in Latin class. So basically the idea is you prompt everybody in the class, including yourself, to think about a rose in their life and a thorn. So the rose represents something good, positive, warm, cozy feelings, something maybe new that's developed or something that they're hoping for, looking forward to. And then the thorn is something a little bit prickly, a little bit tough, a little bit challenging, a little bit painful maybe. And then students are asked to share their rose and their thorn. And I find that by modeling myself, it really helps to set a tone and the stage for students to feel more comfortable, sharing themselves. So this is one that is really good to get another way of getting a read on students. And I would also say, especially, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do so much with Latin and to make it all in the target language. I think it's okay sometimes to just keep it in the students' more comfortable language and let them express themselves that way. You could do this pictorially. You could do this remotely on a Padlet, asynchronously. So this is a really easy one to adapt.
So this is the other Stephanie. I think one of the things that Stephanie just mentioned is really, really pertinent too for this conversation, and that is to model the community building for your students. I think in this very fractured time, it's hard for them to know how to behave in a socially acceptable way, in a socially distant way. I think that they're really struggling with that too. Their normal boundaries are being really, really enclosed on all sides. So I think that the more that you can model that strength in building relationships with them, I think the more receptive they would be to, volunteering their own information and sharing their own roses and thorns and things like that as well. And to show this as well, I have this slide deck that I did with my students this year. I did it on the first day of school, and I just made it as like a template, and I just had them all do it in class, and I had them take a picture of themselves and tell me 3 adjectives that describe them, where they dream of traveling, what they did this summer, non-school activities, goals for the year, and then just like some quick facts about them. And I gathered all this information first, and the goal was that in the subsequent classes, I've started every class with I've used Pear Decks in most of my classes, and so at the beginning of Pear Deck, there's like a class list, and I will read on my screen that's separate from them. I will read some of the details about one of their peers, and I'll have them guess who I'm talking about in the class. So in Pear Deck format, they're dragging their icon to the name of the person that they think that I'm describing. And in some cases, they know each other from middle school. In other cases, they don't know each other. But it's really led to some really interesting conversations. And once we name the person who I've been talking about, I do try to make sure that I have a follow-up conversation with the person about one of the things that they have volunteered. So, for example, where I dream of traveling, if they've said something, particularly unique or something like, oh, I want to travel to Thailand. Oh, well, let's talk about Thailand. Like that's a really interesting location. Why would you have chosen that? Things like that. Because I think that, number one, it gives the students an opportunity to be noticed and to feel noticed, but it gives you an opportunity to sort of dig into the student's life a little bit and learn a little bit more about them. And they already know that they're being described, so they already kind of feel like, okay, well, I'm the subject of the conversation. So you're not really like sort of randomly calling them out. Another thing that I thought about in terms of the questions that I asked my students to define about themselves, I teach in a high school, and so I have students who are freshmen, juniors, and seniors. I feel like when kids are in high school, there's always a constant question from grown-ups where they're always asking kids about like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, and what do you want to do for college? And there's really not enough emphasis in a high school environment on who you are right now as a person, what your strengths are, what you believe in, who you are when you're 15. And I think, I'm also a sociologist from college too, so I think that my perspective on this is sort of sociologically informed. But I feel like kids spend a little bit too much time when they're talking to grown-ups talking about who they're going to be in 4, 8, 12, 15 years. And, I want to make sure that I'm focusing on who they are right now, because that's who they are, and sometimes kids can't really envision that sort of future. So, and I did also model it with them. I wanted to show them like exactly what it was. And, and even like little side conversations, like, I don't know if you can see, but my quick take, I asked about your favorite flavor of ice cream. And I told the kids that when I was making this, I actually wrote a new flavor of ice cream that I've never written down as my favorite type before. So it kind of generated some conversation about like, your favorites and how they change, and, what it's like to be a human, right? So that's one of the activities that I do that I think helps at least the kids know who they're around. Now, I'm in a hybrid environment, so I have some classes that are hybrid, in which case I only see half the class, and then there are kids who are always remote. So it took me a little while to figure this out, like a few days of hybrid education, but I actually think this activity works better in a virtual environment when you're with all of the students at the same time, because if I don't want to have these conversations but that are meaningful and, building that community with only like the 3 or 4 kids alphabetically who happen to be there that day. So just some considerations as you're teasing out these ideas for your own schedule. If you want to, you can move the slide. So this is actually exactly what Elizabeth was mentioning before with the random question generator. I use this website. So this presentation is published. I hope the link is in the chat somewhere. If it's not, we'll definitely put it there. But there's a great conversation starters website, and you just click it, and if some of them are a little like weird for high schoolers to talk about. It's like, do you prefer a bath or a shower? I'm like, well, I don't think my 15-year-olds really need to know about the other's bathing preferences. So I go through it enough to find one that works. When it comes to my junior poetry class, we do a little bit more like introspective poetry related things, or like I'll ask philosophy questions that correspond to the Horace that we're reading or something like that. So there are a bunch of different conversation starters online, but I think that it's good to have these to kind of just boost that initial conversation.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah,
of course.
I used to have discussions where my kids would get into arguments, and I decided that they needed to have a chance to state their part but not judge others. So I started to teach them how to do a poll, and that a poll was you got to say your opinion without voicing any kind of reaction to somebody else's. And it's back when most kids still drank soda, so it could be as simple as Coke or Pepsi. Or, who do you think's the better character or whatever. And the whole deal was you could only say your one word, and I'd go up and down the aisles very quickly. And in the beginning, I had to say, no, I don't want to hear your story. Okay, you don't do either. Fine. The third answer is neither, But what happened after a while is the kids learned to feel comfortable saying what they felt. And they also learned that they had to respect other people's opinions too. And I think that it started out as a small thing, but after a while, by the time they were seniors, they'd say, okay, let's just do a poll. Let's see what everybody says, So it builds a community by having them learn to listen.
That's great. And I also like that because in 2020, politically speaking, we have a really contentious society. And I think that kids need to learn how to state their opinion and how to accept other people's opinions, and how to have civil conversations, even if it's just about Pepsi versus Coke, because that's the kind of conversation that they're going to need to have down the road too.
Well, they're so used to saying you're stupid the minute somebody says something they don't like. And
right. So respectful disagreement.
Right. I'm not asking you for an education on why this person thinks differently than yours. Just let them state their piece.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to echo that as well. I think that as much as we are interested in paying heed to our students and making sure that they feel seen and listened to, Jenny, I think your point about making sure that they are really listening to other people and developing some opportunities for empathy is absolutely crucial, especially now. If we think about not only COVID pandemic, but Black Lives Matter pandemic. Okay, I think that this is Sammy Smith again. I think a lot about my class as a musical. I'm not entirely sure if my students, no, I think they would agree. I look for so many opportunities to have students sing. It does not work well on Zoom, which is exactly why I do it. I am currently, for the first month of school, completely remote, and then I will be doing online face-to-face instruction, but also this kind of online instruction because I have students in China and Korea. So I will be working somehow with students in a classroom. I'm not sure what it looks like yet. I'll keep you up to date when I find out. But I think that there's some glorious chaos in asking students to unmute themselves and sing. To really lower the affective filter, to unleash everything that's been pent up. I've been playing In Taberna Cuando Sumos just about every other time we meet. My kids know what taberna is. They know the word sweat from the lyrics here. When Eutychus wipes his sweaty hands in the hair of a slave, they know that word. It's a great opportunity to get kids up out of their seats and dance. I need it myself. The Escorts has this fantastic version of Gaudeamus Igitur. So if we have time at the end, I will play it for you because it's quite lovely. And it just brings a lot of joy to the classroom.
So I think we've all probably heard of or maybe played Gimkit at some point in our classrooms. It's a vocabulary review site, but obviously you could use it for other, sort of quick factual recall type of information. There's a great mode available now called Boss Battle. I actually just used it the other day. Yes, Gimkit has a lot to love, and they currently have this mode. It kind of comes and goes, but they have a lot of like team building type modes. And one of them is this boss battle thing. I just used it the other day, and, I don't know my freshmen that well yet, but I have this one class that we were doing Quizlet, and this one kid was just crushing it every single round. He was like winning without a shadow of a doubt. So I thought, wait a second. He's obviously got, like a really good vocab background. So I switched the list really quickly over to Gimkit, and I made a boss battle. So the boss battle idea is this one kid is competing against the entire rest of the class. And I was a little bit hesitant to do it because, again, I don't know them that well yet, but I thought, you know what, I think I know this kid well enough to know that he can handle it. And I asked him first, and I made sure it was okay. But he actually had a really great time, and the rest of the class had a good time trying to keep up with him. And he won the Gimkit too. He's just like he's a competitive kid, and he also really knows his vocab. But it's a nice way to kind of pull the kids together for a common goal and for a fun goal, and and then there's a little bit of content too. So I definitely appreciate what Stephanie had said earlier, that in these times, I think you have to focus on community almost first, and then content second, because just of where we are and who we are as a society. So I would rather have them, feel like they're on a team together than have to worry about whether or not they all really understand the vocab as well as this other kid. They also have, Gimkit has zombie mode sometimes too, and it splits the players into humans versus zombies, and they have to like gang together and play against each other in order to augment the power of their team and to detract from the power of the other team. So that's a really fun one. I haven't played it yet this year. Oh, sometimes you're the boss. Oh, I hadn't even thought about playing Gimkit with them. I'm not that fast. So I don't know how I would survive, but that's actually a good idea too, because then the kids, they have to start communicating more. Because I've noticed, like in my hybrid classes, I mean, it's half the class size, so already, you're kind of you're playing with half the deck. But then, as I had intimated earlier, our kids are sort of like, they're kind of freaked out about like going outside their boundaries, and they don't want to. They don't want to go outside the socially distant. I mean, there are like marks on the floor for where their desk is allowed to be. And you can just see it in their eyes that they're just nervous about the whole situation. So I wanted to, provide them with stuff to do together when they don't want to work together because they don't know how to work together when they're confined to a small space. Another thing that you could do, and this would be for an all virtual environment, I use Google Meet rather than Zoom, and Google Meet just finalized their integration with Jamboard. Jamboard itself is sort of like a smartboard software. The idea of a Jamboard, technically speaking, is that a Jamboard would be like a smartboard that you would have at like your office meeting or something like that. Like there is a physical Jamboard that you could buy. But in lieu of that, right now a Jamboard is an interactive whiteboard. So there are all these, there are a ton of ways that you could use Jamboards throughout a Google Meet. But I just recently stumbled upon this great blog post. Actually, if you were to click, when you get to the presentation, if you click one of these slide things, they're all templates that I got from this great blog. And so they're just ways of helping the kids kind of suss out what they're going through when they're going through it. So if you're reading a difficult story, you can use the thumbs up, thumbs down for like, who knows what's going on right now. Or, I just introduced present participles. How do you feel about present participles? Good, okay, or bad? I'm not sure if you can see the format in sort of the fine print here, but all those yellow squares that are at the bottom of each of these Jamboard templates, right now they just say name because they're just a template. But what you would do is you can download this as a template and then put all your students' names in it. And then you can reuse this as a template for a variety of different activities. And then it'll always have your students' names already populated there. And what the kids can do is they can just drag it because it's like a Post-it. So they just drag their name to the thumbs up or the thumbs down sign. So it's a really quick temperature check that helps you to figure out where the group is as a whole, even when you can't be there looking at their faces while they are either confused or really getting it.
Stephanie, would you like for me to click on this so that people can see the templates?
Yeah, if you want to, sure. It'll take you a blog post from one of my favorite books and authors, Ditch That Textbook. So he's got a bunch of the Jamboard templates. Those are just a few that I chose for the during class presentations. Yeah, so Elizabeth is saying that when you're using Zoom, you can have kids do reactions, but just so everybody, I don't know how many people know this, but if students have Chromebooks, the Chromebooks cannot do reactions. So we're a Chromebook district and I want them to use their Chromebooks. So unfortunately, I can't do, I don't do Zoom to begin with. But if you do Zoom with your students, you should know that if they have a Chromebook, they won't be able to react like that. I know, it's kind of a bummer. So yeah, the first few Jamboards, they're getting to know you type of activities. But again, because they're templates, you can customize them however you want to. You can put them in the target language. You could make it about the story that you're reading. Whatever you wanted, just to again provide students an area to come together and communicate and collaborate.
Okay, I posted a few things that I like to do during class in order to build community, and one is extension reading. If you don't know about Kyle Smith-Laird, his two texts that are taking the Cambridge stories further, or the original Fabulae Anquilantes by Stan Farrow, they're really wonderful opportunities to put kids into lit circles. They can choose their own story and they can read it you don't have to grade them on it. It's just an opportunity to get them to read, to chat about what they like to read. There are a host of Latin novellas out right now, and Vanderpool, Magister P, they all have really fantastic texts that students can read. If you want to have them, extend their reading time, reading to each other, reading to parents, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I also am a big fan of Latin podcasts. They take like 2-3 minutes. Magister Craft has a Minecraft set of YouTube videos that you can turn the subtitles on or off in Latin, which are particularly nice. Scorpio Martianus also has one too. In the link here, there's one where he is asking Alexa different things in Latin, and she really gives him some funny little responses. Give your kids a chance to compose their own work. I have a student right now who's writing extension stories of his own based on some of the students or some of the characters in Cambridge. Some of the kids really want to perform the text that they write as well. So there are lots of opportunities at this point to build community, and you can do it during class and give kids an opportunity to celebrate learning Latin. The final piece is virtual field trips. So many museums are available online even now that you can visit. Aquasulis in Bath is free, and you can take students on virtual field trips there. Ancientworld.co is a fellow who has basically gone to a number of different ancient sites. You can purchase an entire field trip to Pompeii for, I don't know, like $12, I think, and take your students on a tour of Pompeii. He's got stills, he's got narration that has subtitles if you have kids who are hearing impaired. And it's an opportunity for them to feel like they've traveled together, even though they're still at home, either in front of a computer or in a classroom with you, or across the world, across time zones. So this is just an echo of what Stephanie was saying as well with Jamboards. I think a fantastic piece to end class is to have students tell me, what should I know? What is it that helped you in this class? What did you like? And then I will often ask students, like, how do you feel about this particular character at the end of a story that we've read? Are you pro Salvius? Are you against him? All they have to do is write a yes or a no, and they get super passionate about it. And the conversations continue outside of the class, and then back in when we see each other the next day.
So another way to build some community beyond the classroom is using Flipgrid. So I should have labeled this better. I'm sorry. I don't know why I didn't label it as Flipgrid, but I love using Flipgrid. So this is just a sample of ways that I've used Flipgrid in the past. Building on content that we covered in class, reflecting on stories that we've read together, alternative endings, self-evaluation, or connecting Latin to the world. So just to give you an example, I have 2 student groups doing Flipgrids tonight, actually, as homework assignments. And my level 2s just read Astrologus Victor, parts 1 and 2. And so their assignment is to assume the character of Quintus. And what does Quintus do as he's watching Barbaras die, and he understands now, they read Fortuna Crudelis earlier this week, so he understands why Barbaras has this ongoing struggle with the astrologer, but now he is left without his only link to his father, and now he has to go and find his own way. So how does he react basically to the news that he's just sat through? My level 4s just read poem 84 of Catullus, which is the poem about Arius's speech issues. And so they actually had a long class, not long, but they had a class today about finding I found a bunch of video clips on YouTube about how people are dealing with speech issues, I suppose, and being very critical of speech patterns in the modern world. And so I wanted them to kind of get into the mindset of the fact that, these attacks on speech patterns have not gone away. So their Flipgrid assignment tonight is that they are Arius, and they are responding to the fact that Catullus has now publicly attacked you for the way you speak in a poem. So how does it feel to be the victim? And what do you have to say to Catullus, to tell him to back off? So, these are just ways, again, of getting the kids to think about the things that you've done in class, but also, it's building a common sense, like, well, now the kids all hate Catullus, at least for writing this poem. Maybe not Catullus as a whole, but, watching each other's videos now, they have the opportunity to think about, the experience of their classmates and how their classmates are also viewing the content. You could also use this, as I said, for alternative endings, like, what if Barbalus hadn't died at the end of Astrologus Victor? How could Quintus, what would Quintus have done? Or how would you have rewritten that for like a happier ending and not just Barbalus survives? Like, what else might have happened? And then as far as connecting Latin to the world, with Flipgrid, you can put in like what was I going to say? A current event that has to do with one of the places that you've been talking about, one of the characters you've been talking about. Maybe there's a new version of the Metamorphoses that's being put on like off Broadway or something like that. Have them think about the more modern adaptations of some of the literature that you're reading. These are, as I said, this is kind of a quick screenshot of some of the topics that I used in my AP class. I had to go back to last year because it's only September. I don't have as much stuff in each of my classes this year. But like the second one down, it says Aeneas's second speech. So I actually had them take Aeneas's second speech in the Aeneid, and I had them make it into a commencement speech that they might give in the same way that Aeneas kind of like tries to pep up his soldiers. Like, how would you pep up your graduating class after they've been through so much being at home and learning for the last part of their lives? So, or the last part of their high school careers. So that's another way of encouraging students to communicate with each other. So with Flipgrid, it acts as a discussion board, and students not only record themselves, but then they have an opportunity to watch each other's videos and give feedback to each other. So it becomes a much larger conversation, beyond just like a static students recording. It can go much beyond that.
Okay, so one of the things that I try to do with my distance learners, and I have one class that is fully online and will be fully online indefinitely because I'm in the middle school cohort at my school, and it's an upper school class, so I actually can't be in the same room with them. So one of the strategies that I'm trying to leverage is to use whatever LMS you have. We have one called On Campus, hosted by Blackbot. It's not very good, but I'm using Google Classroom as a second layer LMS because it has so much more for me. And I realized that we all are stuck with different LMS systems, and just figure out what yours can do and try to see how you can optimize communication. So post as often as you can and try to use pictures, videos, and shorter messages to connect with the students in between your live interactions. You can create little posts, during the week. Here I posted one about some space photography that one of my students had sent me so that all of his classmates can also see what he's done, which is really cool. And I also posted this video sort of on a Sunday night, knowing I'm not going to see my students until Friday.
Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I am coming to you from my backyard here in New Haven. I was just mowing the lawn earlier. Looks really good now. I'm so proud of that. And it's a chilly day, but it's really beautiful fall weather. So starting to really like this weather. And I just wanted to make this video to say hi to you. Emilius, hi in China. Everybody else, hi here in Connecticut. Terentius, thank you for sending the pictures of your astronomy photography today. That was so cool. And please let me know if I can share those with the group. I think everybody would really like to see them. So please do keep sending me pictures and updates and messages with what you're doing. I really look forward to hearing those updates. And I just wanted to give you one little heads up for the homework for this week. The first homework assignment is the Exemplum Quadrata worksheet. And just be aware that those are pretty challenging, and it gives you like a lot of grammatical terms, which you might feel a little bit rusty on. It's our first assignment like that this year. So please send me a message if you have questions, like what does subjunctive mean or whatever it is. Or message me to set up an extra help time, and we can do a quick Zoom and I can answer your questions. So take a look at that and let me know if you need any help. I'm thinking of you guys. Keep me posted, and I can't wait till I see you in our Zoom on Friday. So have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So as you can see, I just made a very low tech with my selfie stick. It's too windy, but my goal is that my students will see this and know I'm thinking of them. You'll notice that I was sharing some personal stuff. I think our students love to know about us as people. And then also, letting my students know that I know them as people too with their specific interests. And let them know I'm thinking about them and I miss them, and remind them of each other as well. So the in-between times, through these various texting, messaging, and video options is a really good way to sort of just stay in touch.
On that note, so Stephanie, I also do stuff that's relatively similar, I guess. And today I saw some article on CNN that an actress from Game of Thrones is actually leading like a humanitarian campaign because the island of Lesbos has been through the ringer because there's been a Syrian refugee camp there for years now. And it's like a very extensive camp. And apparently there was like a really awful fire at the camp a few months ago. Anyway, I did not know any of this, but because it's on the island of Lesbos, I immediately posted it to my Latin 4 classroom pages because, I want them to know that Latin does not just stop at, at our classroom boundaries, and that, we're all in it together and that we are all aware of new things. And I kind of wanted to show them too that I'm also learning about, because I did not know about what was happening on this particular island at all. So, I think that you're right. It shows your humanity, but it also shows like, I'm thinking of you, even when you think that I'm not, like we're always in each other's lives.
So this is a good one that you can do as a part of homework. So I call it an audio round robin. So I very frequently assign the students to read in Latin and record themselves as a homework assignment. I love probably at least once out of every 2 weeks, the homework is to read Latin, dramatically, of course. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes I'll create a sort of round robin where each student is sending their recording to one other student, and then they're receiving somebody else's recording. So it's not an exchange. Everybody sees somebody else's. And then they listen to the recordings and they're going to send back positive, and you do have to do some work on making sure it's appropriate, positive feedback, so that they can tell that student whose recording they listened to what you felt they did best, maybe some area they've improved on, and just all positive stuff. And what you can do is have that by email, and you can have the students when they send the recording CC you, and then when they send the feedback, return feedback, they can CC you as well, so that you can follow their interchange, and of course monitor it to make sure that it's positive, supporting, You have to wait to do this activity until you have built trust in your classroom. If trust has not been established, you really can't do this activity. But once you have built trust and you trust the students to be supportive and positive, then this is a really cool way. The students get very excited to hear each other. And, you always have to set the tone of everybody stumbles, everybody makes mistakes, we're just practicing. So I love doing this, and the students really seem to like it too.
I just wanted to chime in. This is Sammy Smith. I really agree. I think that the getting to know your students and establishing trust and developing community norms is absolutely essential. I just wanted to echo what you said. So on the heels of your audio recordings, and both of you, Stephanie and Stephanie, have talked about recording via Flipgrid or doing kind of round robins of posts. I, at the very beginning of the year, did my own post. One of my favorite things that my student a few years ago asked me was if Latin was my first language. And so there's a portrait of me on Flipgrid wearing my SPQR mask. And I thought, why not? So I went to my neighborhood community garden, where I was lucky enough to get a plot this summer because a number of people in Manhattan had left the city. And so I got to take over a plot for a few months. And so I was just chatting with them about where I lived in proximation to the plot. And I uploaded it on Flipgrid, and then my students were able to view and respond. And I think having them respond to you is a nice, easy way first to kind of set the tone for the class. And then, as Stephanie had mentioned, waiting until you've really developed those classroom norms. So it's super easy to use, and you can use it in a variety of ways. A number of my kids brought their dogs and cats onto the screen, so we got to see a little bit about them outside of the classroom. I found out one student has, I think, 14 cats and a gecko, so quite the menagerie, and lots of conversation for class later. The other thing that I wanted to chat about is reading with students at home. This is something that I always encourage my students to do. I tell them, when you get home and after your parents have taken good care of you, you tuck your parents in and you open up something from Cambridge and you read to them a good night story. Don't make it too scary, or if it's going to be scary, let them know it's going to be okay. But read to them in Latin. And then I have my parents either email me and say, so-and-so read to me. This is a really lovely thing that I get as a teacher, is to hear from parents about what their children are reading and how excited they were to hear their children reading in Latin. That the parents are as invested in the stories. Just last night, one of my parents said, I can't wait to find out what happens to Salvius next. So that was pretty fun. But it's super easy. You can ask them to email you a little confirmation, and then you're already establishing connections with parents. I don't know any of my parents. I'm at a new school this year. And so this is something that I think is particularly important for me to reach, in addition to my students, but also their parents, and to get to know them in this way. So that's a really precious moment. I would like to go back at some point, and I'll just share with you some of the links if we have a little time. Stephanie, do you want to say anything, Jenny or Martha?
I would jump in and just say, I love, just as you do, I love having students read to family members. And one way that I've done the feedback too is I have a little certificate that they fill out with the title and the name of the person they read to. And then the reviewer, the listener, gets to write a little review. And instead of having how many stars they get, I have laurel wreaths. So did you get 4 out of 5 laurel wreaths? So it's a little fun. And I agree that parents love it. They love it.
Yeah, if you want to show those links, that sounds good.
Okay, so if you're looking for additional resources on socio-emotional learning, there are 2 links here. The activity book is online. It's got a host of things, and they're super user-friendly, and they're available for kids from elementary school to high school. I don't think any age is too young. So let me back up. Let's see. Okay, this is Gaudiamos Iggy Tour by the Escorts. It's a YouTube. It might have a little ad before it starts to play. If you don't know this version, it's fantastic. All right, so you get a little taste of that. My students performed it last year, and it was so much fun. They were doing the twist and singing. They had togas on. This is, of course, all right before the pandemic hit. And my spouse made me some poodles that they could attach to their togas, this like peel and stick poodles. So they had poodle togas instead of poodle skirts. But we can do all sorts of things in a pandemic as well. They can still dance. I'm just going to take you on a couple of quick tours. Here's the Magister Craft podcast.
Salvete plurimum.
You can change the settings.
Nomen mi est Magister Craft. Hodie servus sum. Et de domo Romana discitis. Venite mecum ad domum Romanam. Ecce domus. In Roma antiqua divites non in insulis, sed in domibus habitabant. Domus etiam tabernam habebat. Ecce taberna. Nunc intremus. Per Januam et fauces ad atrium imus. In atrio est impluium. Ecce impluium. Aqua in impluium de compluio it. In atrio hospites expectant.
So if you at all teach middle schoolers, this is a great community builder, especially if they love Minecraft. Here's the little piece on Alexa.
Oh, can I just jump in while you're opening that?
Absolutely.
My school, we are like guilty of being pretty big fans for Magister Craft. My students absolutely love it. It's a huge deal. And he has some merchandise up now. He has stickers. And I bought like the Redbubble stickers for my students. They have them on their laptops. So every day I get to stare out at a class full of Magister Craft stickers on their laptops. And I love it. And I know, like, I hate to encourage people to spend their own money on their students, but the students loved it and built so much fun. It's hard to have fun sometimes now with all the rules and everything. So that just like the stickers brought a lot of joy that day. So Magister Craft, I'm 100% on board.
Cheers. I win again. Patrick. That's Sir Patrick. Ooh, sir.
Writing's not that easy.
So
but
many
Grammarly can
sorry.
help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
There we go.
Alexi, qui dies est? Hodie est ante diem quartum idus Januarias, anno bis millesimo septingentesimo septuagesimo altro ab urbe condita. Hodie septingentesimo quinto anno ab urbe condita. Gaius Iulius Caesar. Semper se re publicae commoda privadis neces tutinibus habens studiola trans Rubicon regione tertia decima in Italian transit indicens bellum civile namque reliquas legiones sexi verdis evocat subsequi juvet eo Lucius Caesar adolescens me. Alexi, escita me hora quarta. Multum immane in museum ire opus habeo. Ita facia. Lexi, hora hora quarta est. Immo, sol lucet in caelo. Secundum ratione romana, prima hora diei, post solis ortum incipit, ianim quarta diei hora est. Alexi, quo possim ducere Corinnam hodie vesperi? Tu modo Pompeia lentus patiare sub umbra, cum sol Herculei terca leonis adit, autobi muneribus nati sua munera mater, adidit externo, marmore dives opus, nec tibi vide turquae priscis parsata bellis, porticus auctoris livia nomen habet. No.
That's a nice place to stop. And then here's the
Yes.
yeah, it's so funny. And he's got a number of different YouTube videos which are quite fun, and my students really like listening to them. And this is the last piece. It's one of the places you can, if you want. And again, like Stephanie said, I wouldn't encourage anyone to spend extra money, but this is really worth the money for me. And so I'm going to accept cookies, and you can go down to the shop, and there's tons and tons and tons of destinations: Rome, Athens, just Olympia, Ostia, Pompeii. So if you're interested, you can reach out. You can take a virtual trip beforehand, and they're super willing to work with you in whatever you may need.
Very nice, ladies. All three of you had so many excellent ideas and suggestions. And wow, there's just a ton of stuff out there that you can do. It's just a matter of finding the time to get it all together.